What is up, everyone? Max Lin here, and welcome back to another episode of Themindhere. This is my bi-weekly update to everyone about upcoming works for my YouTube channel, discussing what I do behind the scenes, and talking about other things that come to mind. It also serves as a way to keep myself accountable and externally motivated to get my work done. If you're interested in how I make my music and videos, feel free to take a look at some previous episodes. Welcome to all of you who are here for the first time. If you like my content and want to see more, please consider subscribing. As some of you may have noticed when you visited my YouTube channel recently, there are some changes to it. Specifically, I changed my logo, the profile picture, and also the channel art. So I did this change because I decided that my old logo and channel art no longer reflected what I did. The old logo was made 3 years ago when I was first learning a little bit about the digital art medium. So it was not bad, but it also, I didn't know what I was going to do now. So as I grew, it sort of diverged from my original version, my original vision, which is why I decided to make an upgrade to it. Now, my original logo was a T for the guy here, with a treble clef and a bass clef on its side. And they were shadows, but they had some red and blue light radiating off of it. And I felt that the neon, the light sort of look was pretty cool, which was why I stuck with it. And also chose to put that as the way I put my name, the guy here, onto the channel art. And with the channel art, I was interested in SpaceX back then and still am. So that's why I put the Falcon Heavy launch onto the banner on the left side. Yeah, left side of it. And on the right side was one of the pieces of art I was working on. I originally had thought that I would do more art on this channel, so I put that on there. Part of the reason why I wanted to change my channel art was because that picture of the Falcon Heavy launch, that wasn't taken by me, and I don't think I properly credited that photographer. So I'm going to link him in the description below, so then I pay my tributes. But I didn't want to use someone else's photo and not give credits to them, so I decided to do something of my own. So the new channel art, they use pictures that were taken by me. So all of this is mine. I didn't take anything from anyone else. So that way I can avoid the copyrights or something like that. And also I just wanted to put my own unique twist to it, right? So I still kept the guy here, but I changed the text around. I made it so that it was a little more, it looked a little more modern, right? And I like the color palette of blue with some mix of red in there, right? So that created a sort of purplish look. So I like that. I like the fade in it. And that font, actually, I made that font because I originally was thinking that I would do a different kind of font since I couldn't even find the original font for the texts. And that's why I wanted to make my own. But then I decided, you know what, let's go all out and make an entire font for it. So that's what I did. So that's my original font on there. And down in the bottom, I wanted to have a little more words because I wanted it to be a little more minimalist to reflect a little bit of what the channel is about. So I put music and ideation. Music for obviously the music I make on my channel, but also ideation because I want to do more of something that is more just speaking of my thoughts. So the series that I quite haven't started yet, but I am going to, I plan on doing, and some other future content that I will talk about later in this video. And another thing is that I decided to add that lightning in there. Because I felt that without it, it felt kind of bland. I wanted to add a little more spice into the art. And also because I'm interested in the electric revolution. That is something that I might talk about in the future. But lightning is cool and it seemed to spice things up. So I decided to add that in there. Next up, for my YouTube channel, I'm going to be making an intro video for my new subscribers or new people who are watching. So then they can get a good feel of what this channel is about, that little introduction, so then they don't just get thrown right into the midst of what I do. That way it's a little more formal and it makes everything a little smoother. I then, after that on my channel, I plan to start making some Vocaloid music. So look forward to that coming. But for now, I'm still doing some upgrades. And besides that, with regards to this series, Themindhere, I plan on upgrading my workspace here. So this chair, this is quite old, and I originally didn't plan on upgrading this at all because I was going to be going to college. So then I wouldn't need to. But then since I decided to stay at home for the first semester, I thought it would be much more worth it to upgrade my workstation. So I'll be upgrading this chair. At the time of the purchase, it said 4 to 6 weeks, so right now should be 3 to 5 weeks until I get that, but in the meantime, that's what we'll have to stick with, but I'll be upgrading that. I'll also be cleaning the room around here since I plan to change the camera angle a little bit, since this will be a more permanent space, so I want to make it more professional here right now. And the other thing is that I now have the microphone purchased. So I'm using my iPhone mic right now, and it's okay. It's not that bad, but I could definitely improve. So I bought a purple Panda lav mic. So hopefully that will improve the audio quality. So look forward to that coming. In the past videos, I said that I would be getting that, and now I actually have that purchased. It's on its way. So by the next video, you should be able to see some audio differences. Right, with updates to my YouTube channel out of the way, let's dive into something that I've been thinking of the past 2 weeks. So, it is July 2020 in the United States of America. And right now we are in the midst of a global pandemic, the outbreak of COVID-19, as well as social unrest in the United States because of some racial tensions and possibly some other issues, right? But what I want to consider here today is not specifically about these issues, but something a little more deeper, a little more of the root of this, more of the overall and the underlying causes. So let's consider for a second culture. Now, I'm not going to be diving into critiques about specific cultures or anything. I haven't done enough research in it, so I'm not going to be confident in telling you about this. But what I do want to consider is what affects culture, right? So consider what is affecting the culture of a nation, of a group. Is it the leader of that group, that nation? Is it the governance system? Is it more of the local governance? Is it foreign investors, foreign companies? Or is it the people of that group, of that nation? Because if you look out there, and especially right now, I have no clue what it is in the future. I desperately hope it's better, but I don't know. So if you look out there, chances are you'll be seeing a lot of blame being thrown around. That's the easiest thing to do. Throw the blame on someone else so then you don't have to actually do anything, right? So one side's blaming the other side, one country's blaming the other country. There's a lot of that going on. Throwing around blame is easy. It's like throwing around a dodgeball. It's easy, right? But here's the thing though. If we blame the state, is it the state that actually affects the culture, the underlying culture that is creating these tensions, right? Because although, yes, a powerful state, a powerful group, a powerful system, a structure from the top down may be able to affect the culture, but the underlying culture of the people, that is determined by the people, right? So in the United States, considering how African Americans, Black people, are being affected by police brutality, we have to consider for a second. Who is being hired to be the police? The people that are being hired to be policemen or policewomen are the people in the communities. And arguably, these are the most American, the most patriotic people, right? We want to have the most American people, the most law-abiding citizens, to be the people that are in the law enforcement. So then if they pull from the population, then police brutality means that there's something in the population itself that's bubbling up and creating these tensions. So consider for a second then. You are part of the people, I'm assuming, if you are part of the group, right? So then, rather than looking out and saying, why are they not doing anything? Maybe we should consider, what should we be doing? Maybe we should hold a little more personal accountability to this. Because, let's face it, we can't do anything about the federal government not doing anything or doing something wrong or some other far off entity, right? We have no control unless you're part of that. That is an exception. But for most people, we don't have direct control over it. So what can we do? We have direct control over our lives and how we live it. We also have an effect on our surrounding community. So maybe instead of focusing on something far off that we can't control and just throwing our blame there because it's easy, maybe we should consider, what are we doing? Maybe we should consider, what is something that we can be doing to help this, rather than what are they doing wrong? Now, as some of you may know, I am going to be going into college in the fall, so I just graduated from high school, and it is tradition to have some high schoolers come up to do a graduation speech. Now, I applied for one, and I wanted to do one. However, I didn't get accepted. Now, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the content of my speech, just because I felt it was something important to get out. I probably didn't write the speech in a well enough format to get it accepted, and there are many talented speakers out there who are probably much better than me. So it is understandable that I didn't make it into the few people that are able to give the graduation speech. And plus, we're not having an in-person graduation anyways. It's going to be over video, so it sort of loses its specialness, but it's all okay. I just wanted to talk about a little of what I wanted to talk about in my graduation speech, and that is the concept of social debt. Now, most of us are probably familiar with financial debt, right? It's something where it's like a negative balance. It's something we owe to someone, right? But the concept of social debt is a little different. While the financial debt feels almost like a restraining order on you, saying you have to do this to make up for your debt. The concept of social debt is someone is offering you something and they don't expect anything in return necessarily. They're offering you more freedom, more options for you, and in return, you almost feel obliged to help them. It's more of, oh, you helped me, so I'll help you, not you, not because you owe me something, right? So that's the first distinction. But not only that, it's not even a financial or a numbers thing, right? Because in normal financial debt, you can keep track of the specifics, how many dollars, how many cents, whatever your unit of currency it is. And you also take into account inflation and whatnot. You have an exact number. But in social debt, that's not the case. It's simply they offered something to you and that helped you do something better. So then you feel in return that you should be doing something. It's like a writer who was inspired by possibly dead people, dead writers, and they're writing a book, a novel in tribute to them. That is the paying of social debt. Like scientists who are standing on top of the shoulders of giants. You probably have heard of that saying because of all of the scientific achievements that have been, that modern scientists build off of to make their progress, right? So this is the concept of social debt, where we are borrowing almost from this free pool. People are willing to offer to others to help them, to free them from some resource restraint or some other restraint. And they're not necessarily asking for anything in return, but just hoping that they become better, and then the people who are on the receiving end then feel obligated to repay it. That's why they feel it as a social debt, but it's not the debt in the sense that if you don't repay it, then there will be enforcement coming after you. No, it's if you don't repay it, you will feel guilty. So that is the concept of social debt, and that is something that I feel like is much more healthy than the concept of financial debt, because if you can't pay off financial debt, then you start going into austerity territory, which for nation states means you raise taxes and you cut spending, And for humans, for individuals, that's the equivalent to malnutrition, forced malnutrition, and bad housing or homelessness. So that's something that we should probably consider. All right, we are now at our comments and questions section of this episode. So, this episode's question comes from Alfred Prose. Now, I don't want to read this off word for word. It seems like it's more appropriate for me to paraphrase. I'll put it up on the screen, but it's asking, how am I? Just how am I in general? And also, possibly, am I considering doing a podcast? He thinks that I would do well in a podcast, making this a podcast, as well as talk a little bit about my pre-pandemic life versus my pandemic life right now. How has the pandemic affected me? So those are good questions to talk about. Right now, I'm doing pretty well. I am getting things settled in a little bit more. I am making sure I'm getting my college decisions in place so that I know what to do. I'm also working on myself, making sure I build up more discipline. I have lost a little bit of that going into the pandemic, but now I'm slowly bringing it back up. I'm also seeing what projects I can work on and continuing my progress. So overall, I'm doing pretty well. So thank you. Now, it's funny you would mention podcasts because I was thinking something along the similar lines a little bit earlier. Thinking that, because, well, podcasts have been pretty popular recently. And also, the format of this video is almost suitable, almost perfect for a podcast. So I was thinking that maybe I could transition this to a podcast style where I can offer this in audio form only on some podcast platforms, as well as the video version here. So I was already thinking about that. But yeah, thank you for saying that I would do well on it. So yeah, I appreciate it. And I was thinking about that. So look forward to some podcasts of this in the future. Of course, I'll notify you guys about this, but that is part of my future plans and improvements for this channel. So these may as well be turned into a podcast. So my pre-pandemic life was more geared towards academics. All sense because school is very structured, at least here in the United States, where it's essentially taking out like 8 hours and adding on sports. It's like 10 hours of the day, and everything else is structured around it. I fit activities either before or after it. My food is determined by it. So a lot of this is structured around the academics. I was starting to feel that I wanted to do my own projects and break free from this, and I'm a senior as well, so I have a little more leniency there. So I was starting to break free, but it was still very regimented of a structure. So that's the first difference. With the pandemic going on, there's a lot of uncertainty, which makes people uncomfortable sometimes because they're not sure what they're going to be due. People are used to having their superiors telling them this is their structure. And some people may complain, but when that's taken away, they then don't know what they're doing. Right? We don't feel comfortable with too many options because then it's hard to make a decision fatigue, right? So that's something that has to get used to. Although I fared pretty well, I would say, because I was already on that path towards more self-centric, more what I need to improve my development and make progress for my life. So I fared pretty well in that, but I know some people may have not fared too well with this and may need a little more work adjusting to this lifestyle where everything is not as concrete as it would have been. Now, the other major differences here are some along the lines of health, where I do have more options, more freedom to wake up at whenever I want. And that can be a double-edged sword because that means I could wake up at a time that suits me, but that also means that I could abuse that and wake up at like 2 in the afternoon, right? So that's something else to consider where there's that fluidity, but that means there's also room for exploitation. And it's self-harming, but it's an addictive tendency. And along the lines of health, With exercise, I used to be part of a sports team, a cross country and track team. So, of course, again, there's that concrete structure of practice this time, and you always get that exercise. I'm basically guaranteed exercise. So, without that, I have to be more vigilant about my exercise and find more creative ways to exercise without exposing myself too much and going outside too much. Right, so there are some restraints there, but I am still exercising and I still want to be fit. I'm also watching my food. That hasn't changed too much. Our food situation is fine, so I'm thankful for that. But we have started, our buying patterns have now been more in bulk and fewer trips and fewer purchases or in total, but they're bulk purchases, right? So that has affected food a little bit, but overall, that has been pretty much the same. One major difference, though, is probably the amount of time that I spend in my room or in front of a screen. That it has improved, it not improved, it has increased quite a bit because there's nothing else that I would feel I want to do, and that's something I could improve on, maybe go outside a little more, read more, etc. But it's really easy to be drawn into distractions online. So it goes without saying that a lot of people are spending a lot more time in front of screens. That depending on how you use that, that may be a good thing, that may be a bad thing. But that is definitely another change that has happened. So thank you, Alfred, for the question. If you'd like to be part of my episodes and contribute to this one question AMA per episode, then please feel free to leave a question down in the comments of my YouTube video, and I will go and pick one for the next episodes to explore. All right, that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Thank you everyone for listening. I appreciate all the support you have given me throughout this process. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave it down in the comment section down below. Take care, and I will see you in the next video.